Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Whiskey Wednesdays. My name is Garo Lim, and I'm your host. Today is the second of 6 episodes featuring my recent tour of Shelter Point Distillery in Campbell River on beautiful Vancouver Island. During this trip, I had the pleasure of interviewing Jacob Wiebe, manager of the Shelter Point Distillery. Today's episode was filmed entirely on location at Shelter Point's Warehouse Number 1, home to more than 1,500 casks. Don't forget to check out last week's episode as we showcase the distillery's overview as well as its production process. So enjoy today's episode and stay tuned for the next 4 weeks. Before we get started, do me a favor and click the thumbs up button below, share this video, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. This is your chance to support our friends at Shelter Point Distillery and spread the word about another wonderful Canadian brand. If you're new here, welcome. You can watch and browse all of my other whiskey reviews on this channel. I'm always open to your feedback so we can make this journey even better. All right, so Jacob, whereabouts are we standing in right now?
Right now we're in Shelter Point Warehouse Number 1. So there's about 1,500 casks in here. Some ex-bourbon, some ex-wine casks, a couple sherry butts you can see. And this is where all of the oldest whiskey at Shelter Point is. Right behind me we have some whiskey that's going to be 10 years in the next month. So wow. We're really excited about that.
And these are all, are they all from the distillery itself or individuals as well?
Everything. Yeah, so some of these barrels are owned by some private companies. You have the Bravo Company right here. You got Pod Square, which is kind of the group name of the gentlemen. Most of the whiskey in here is 100% Shelter Point. Year one, we sold about 20 casks to private investors or private groups. There's about, I think, 7 or 8 left. Most of them have been bottled in that 5 to 6 year range, but we had some people committed to 10 years. So yeah, we're going to be bottling those here probably in the next 6 months. So we're excited about that.
Excellent. What's the average cost if we were to purchase a barrel?
Yeah, the average cost for a group to buy a barrel of new make spirit is $6,000 up front plus GST for a bourbon barrel. And then there's usually about $2,000 to $2,500 at the time of bottling that covers the taxes and the bottling fees. We do have a barrel offer right now for barrel whiskey aged exclusively in Ardbeg. That's $10,000, $500 right up front, and no additional costs down the road. And it should work out to about $40 to $50 a bottle, roughly.
Right. And you would be able to bring in the individual groups in to taste.
Yeah, so we do private tastings for the groups. They can kind of come. We have one group that comes every year. There's 4 members. They're all kind of in their 60s. We come have a little lunch in here. They go through their samples. We talk about other whiskeys. They're big whiskey collectors. They often bring us some really fancy things to go through, like a Glenmore 24-year-old that distillery's been defunct for 20 years, so it was really neat. But it's a really nice kind of time. It's usually myself and our head distiller, Leon Webb. We'll sit down with the group and go through their whiskey and the other whiskeys at Shelter Point.
Have you heard of the Angel Share? This refers to the percentage of whiskey that evaporates from the barrel in the maturation process. The higher the Angel Share percentage evaporated, then the stronger your alcohol by volume, or ABV, will be. And for those viewers on here, you can't smell what I'm smelling, but I can definitely smell the Angel Share.
Yeah, this is a potent room. I can tell you this is the worst place to be at Shelter Point if you have a hangover. And I've seen every member of the staff get a little bit upset after a long night of drinking being in this room.
So what's the average Angel Share percentage lost per barrel?
So it's about 3%, and you can kind of smell that right now.
Right.
And because this room is insulated, so once this room heats up, once the mass is warmed up, it never really goes back down. So it is a little bit higher than Scotland. Scotland typically averages 1.5%. But having that 3% Angel Share means more wood interaction more quickly. So our whiskey does mature a little bit quicker than it would in Scotland, but we lose more. So it kind of evens itself out. There's no way to cheat the system.
Right. And I noticed that there's this air conditioning units you see. So what's the temperature you keep this room in?
Yeah, so those are the heat pumps. We haven't turned them on in a couple of years.
They're heat pumps?
They're heat pumps. So the first year we built this warehouse, we were like, oh, we need to keep it warm and speed up the maturation process. But once it was insulated, the temperature never really went down, so we just haven't had to turn them on. We were keeping it around kind of like 15 to 17 degrees.
Right.
Room temperature, just over room temperature. But now you can feel it. It's warm in here. And even in the wintertime, if it gets below freezing, we'll turn them on. But it's gotten below freezing once.
That's going to be the best process for the maturation process,
It helps.
but also for...
Maturation speeds up a little bit when it's warmer, and then it just never cools down. And you get more barrel interaction when the spirit is warmer. It kind of goes in and out more. There's a theory that if you chill it all the way out and like really cool it down and heat it back up, you might be able to pour some more. We haven't had any success. We tried that in a small scale in a smaller building. We didn't notice any difference, except our electricity bill went up. So it was like, oh, it's like we did a 1.5-year project and we noticed no difference from what was just steady one temperature throughout the year, opposed to forcing it up and down.
So speaking of barrel interaction, how often do you turn your barrels?
Yeah, we almost never turn the barrels. Every barrel gets touched once a year minimum. Every barrel is sampled by Leon Webb once a year to determine how it's performing, how it's changing from the previous year. Is it going up? Is it going down? Are there notes in there that we thought would age away that didn't? So every barrel gets picked up and moved once a year, but we're not rolling or shaking the barrels once a year at all.
If you watched last week's episode, you'll remember the question I asked Jacob about how many people work on Shelter Point's 400-acre estate. The answer, just 5. 3 of them, including Jacob, work on the farm and its production of whiskey, whereas 2 work exclusively indoors. The work ethic of this lean team at Shelter Point Distillery takes after its owner, Patrick Evans, a second-generation farmer. And who's Leon Webb?
Leon Webb is one of our 2 head distillers, because 2 heads are better than 1. Leon's a Harriet Watt trained distiller. He more probably famous for gin. He created the Empress Gin down in Victoria, the lovely one that changes color. But back in Scotland, he created the Isla Harris Gin when he was in school, and that was Consumer Gin of the Year for 3 or 4 years in a row in Scotland. But he is a whiskey guy, so he's our kind of scientific background for whiskey. He's got the great palate. He does most of the blending for us, most of the vatting. He decides what goes into what bottling. And then we have James Marinas, the other distiller, who's more like, if he hears a noise over there, he can tell you what is breaking or what belt needs replaced, and he's kind of our mechanical side, so it's kind of 2 heads, different backgrounds, different histories that work together really well.
We have come to the end of this week's whiskey review. Don't forget to like and share this video with your friends and fellow whiskey lovers. Stay tuned next week as Jacob gives us a tour of Shelter Point Distillery's warehouse number 2, along with a private sampling of a cask-strength whiskey that's only been in a 10-year-old Ardbeg cask for a month. Until then, and wishing all of you a fantastic week, Sláinte.